A little while ago, The Star ran an article written by The Star's education writer that was headlined, "GEICO Tax Credit Provides Private School Scholarships." And under that it said, GEICO announced an $8 million contribution, pay attention to that word, to the Arizona Leadership Foundation to be used to provide scholarship assistance to private schools for low-income children. I have to admit that when I saw that, while I was reading the paper in the morning, I almost spit out my coffee. I couldn't believe calling it a contribution. Tell you why in a second. The Star editorial 2 days later followed up by saying GEICO donation, a boon to the tax credit program. And it talked about a donation to provide scholarships, so on, so on, so on. This wasn't a donation, folks. This was GEICO saying the state should use our tax dollars to give $8 million to various private schools for tuition. In other words, they were creating vouchers without it costing a penny to GEICO. Now, the story of tuition tax credits is kind of complex, and we happen to have an expert here because Ann Eve, along with the Arizona Education Parent Network in 2009, did some phenomenal research on this, went and gave a press conference in Phoenix, which was followed by extensive reporting by both the Arizona Republic and the East Valley Tribune. To its discredit, the Arizona Star did not pick up on this reporting, and I'd like her to talk about something more, explain the program a bit.
Well, there are several different types of tax credit programs in Arizona. There's the individual private school tax credit program, and those numbers keep just skyrocketing. So, it used to be that individuals or couples could give $500, then it jumped to $1,000. Now it's at $2,000. Corporate donations, corporations are allowed to give as well. But what many people don't realize is that when they're redirecting their tax dollars. So when you say, I am designating, my $2,000 if I'm an individual or my millions if I'm a corporation, you're basically saying this is money that otherwise would be going into the state's general fund, but I'm going to redirect it to actually a middleman who then is going to redirect it to private schools to pay for private school tuition.
So let me get this clear. If I give a $1,000 or a $2,000 donation, and if GEICO gives an $8 million donation, literally I'm going to get every penny back. It's not like a contribution. Every penny back when I pay my taxes.
Absolutely. All you're doing is you are redirecting your state tax dollars. And you would think this would be unconstitutional because Arizona's Constitution actually says no public money shall go to private or parochial schools. Well, what happened was someone came up with this brilliant idea to argue to the courts that because the money was not going into the state coffers, it was going to go into something called an STO, a school tuition organization, first, that it never made it to the state. And so your tax dollars never actually came in. So technically they're not actual tax dollars.
So they won't,
since the state never receives them.
They don't call these vouchers.
No,
but a lot of us, myself included, call them backdoor vouchers because they're sneaking a voucher through the back door because they can't do it through the front door. By law, 70 to 80% of the private schools in Arizona and across the country are parochial, meaning that they're based in religious organizations, and it's forbidden by our Constitution to give money, state money, for religious education, period.
It is. And what the investigations found that the Republic and the East Valley Tribune did is that ever since the state began these private school tax credits, what has happened? Well, tuition at private schools in Arizona that receive these has gone up through the roof because they now have a way to use state tax dollars to pay for tuition. And when you're talking about the private tax credits that individuals give, those are not based on need whatsoever. There is no measurement whatsoever as to whether the scholarship recipient is financially needy. So you're basically helping wealthy people send their kids to private schools for free. And some of these schools charge hefty tuitions. I mean, we're talking $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 a year that our state tax dollars are in essence paying for.
And let me explain how this works. Let's say I'm a wealthy individual. I have a young kid I want to send to school. So I go to you and say, Ann Eve, will you please write a check to this school tuition organization for however much you know you can get back in taxes, because you'll get all the money back, don't worry about it. And can you please put my child's name on it as a recommendation? Then I go to somebody I work with, and I go to cousins and aunts and uncles and parents and grandparents and neighbors and anybody I get them to do it together, and bingo, I've come up with $15,000 or $20,000 that goes to the school tuition organization, who gives it to the private school, and I send my kid to a $15,000 or $20,000 a year school, and all of us, not you and not the other people who put in the money, but all of us taxpayers pay for it.
That's correct.
Together.
And the school tuition organization skims off 10% of those tax dollars for their operating expenses. And the most infamous school tuition organization operator is a state legislator, Steve Yarborough. And surprise, surprise, he is the man who continues introducing legislation to expand this program, to increase the amount of our state tax dollars that can enrich him. And this is a man who is making millions off of this. He has bought himself 2 luxury cars with this money. He pays himself a salary. He pays himself rent. He pays himself legal fees, even though he's no longer an attorney. He pays himself for the processing company. He runs the processing company. He pays his own processing company. I mean, it is the biggest scam, but Arizona has no conflict of interest laws, and he's often chairman of the ethics committee. So forget an ethics investigation.
So to go back where we began, GEICO did not give $8 million to help poor kids through a school tuition organization to give them scholarships or vouchers. GEICO said, you and me are going to spend out of our taxpayer money $8 million to do what they tell us to do.
That's right. And one little final piece of information, if you and I want to find out companies that have participated in this, guess what? By law, that's secret. GEICO must have sent out a press release. When I called the Department of Revenue today, sorry, by law, we cannot release those names of those companies.
And that's the way it goes here with vouchers in Arizona.
The great state of Arizona.